What's the difference between a 60-year-old coal tycoon and a 5-year-old? Well, when it comes to the future of the planet, a lot. In 2023, a group of young Montanans between the ages of 5 and 22 won a landmark lawsuit against their state. The lawsuit challenged a state energy policy known as the MEPA limitation, which made it so that state agencies weren't allowed to consider greenhouse gas emissions in their environmental reviews. So while big energy had to account for immediate local damages like toxic runoff or landscape destruction, they couldn't account for the future problems caused by their emissions. And if you're 60 and focused on your coal fortune, those future consequences might not seem like a big deal. But if you're 5 with your whole life ahead of you, you'd have every right to be scared for your future. A state judge agreed. Montana's state trial court ruled that young people have a right to a healthy environment, and that if we only think about the consequences that we can see now, that's not fair to the people who might be harmed in the future. This case was a huge victory for sustainability in the present and future, following in the footsteps of tons of other cases where young people around the world took their governments to task for threatening their future health and safety. But like everything in sustainability, it doesn't end there. In February of 2024, the state of Montana appealed that decision to the Supreme Court, and as we're making this episode, we don't know if the ruling will hold or not. While that's disappointing, and maybe super predictable, it also does a good job of illustrating an important line of thinking in sustainability. That tension between what's right for us, what's right for everyone, and what's right for all of our futures. Hi, I'm Miriam Nielsen, and this is Study Hall Sustainability. Doing the right thing is hard, and it's even harder to do the right thing for everyone, everywhere, all at once. One of the primary goals of sustainability is to improve the well-being of individuals and communities everywhere in the world. But what that looks like can really vary. Humanity isn't a monolith. We all have different wants and needs, cultures and beliefs, and we don't all agree on what it means to do the right thing. Like, is it morally wrong to cut down a forest of trees? Some people, like biocentrists who believe all living things have inherent value, might say it is, on the grounds that those trees have as much of a right to exist as you do. But other people might say, hey, if people need that wood to heat their homes and feed their kids, it would be morally wrong not to. But then other people might say, well, if we cut down the forest now, nobody will be able to use it 5 years from now to heat their homes and feed their kids. And then others might say, hey, that forest is in a low-income rural area. Big paper cutting it down to make paper to jam the printers in the big city is wrong because it's unfair to the people who live there. And while all those arguments are different, they all come from the idea of justice. Justice for people, justice for the environment, and justice for the future. This concept of justice is huge, because a sustainable world has to be a just one too. Later in this course, we'll spend an entire episode on the concept of environmental justice, which focuses on the injustices we see in low-income and non-white communities. Justice in sustainability takes all kinds of forms. It focuses on the people who are here right now, but it has to account for the people in the future too. And the Iroquois people in what is now referred to as the northeastern United States are super on it. Their Great Law of Peace says that when they make decisions, the Iroquois need to think about not only the present, but also the coming generations, even those whose faces are yet beneath the surface of the ground. This idea recognizes that humans and the environment are deeply connected across the past, present, and future. It asks people to consider how their actions might affect what's to come, the land, water, energy, and more. Then it encourages us to act in ways that will have benefits 7 generations into the future. 7 generations! To put that into perspective, imagine a 25-year-old today in 2024. They're generation 1. If they had a baby this year and each of their descendants grew up and also had a baby at age 25, generation 7, they'd be born all the way out in 2149, watching 100-year-old videos of long-dead YouTube hosts on screens implanted in their eyes. That's some serious long-term thinking. I can't even plan for 7 days from now. But that idea has also been picked up by others along the way. For instance, some early efforts in environmental conservation were motivated by things like clear-cutting timber with abandon, without thinking about how slowly forests grow back. Besides being terrible for the trees and everything that depended on them, conservationists also saw these practices as being unfair to future humans who wouldn't get to enjoy nature's benefits. So in the early 1900s, US President Theodore Roosevelt helped spread these ideas. He passed legislation that protected endangered animals and federal lands, after he took that land from indigenous people who had been doing a perfectly fine job protecting it. And then in his book, A Book Lover's Holiday in the Open, he wrote, "Our duty to the whole, including the unborn generations, bids us to restrain an unprincipled present-day minority from wasting the heritage of these unborn generations." In other words, you clowns, control yourself and stop ruining stuff for my future great-great-great-grandkids, to heavily paraphrase. I have some things I would like to say to Teddy Roosevelt about being a clown who ruined stuff, but a good 4.5 generations after Teddy's time, we're still thinking about these ideas. So while Teddy's busy occasionally coming to life as a wax figure in the Natural History Museum, sustainability activists are busy figuring out how we can make decisions that benefit the future world, as well as the one we have right now. Fairness within our world right now is called intra-generational justice. That includes the environmental justice stuff we talked about earlier, making sure that all kinds of people and communities are protected by our choices, and nobody is getting thrown under the bus, even if it is electric. But like we learned from the Iroquois, we also have to pay attention to intergenerational justice, or justice between generations. We have to make sure we're not throwing future people under the electric bus either. Intra and intergenerational justice might seem at odds with each other, but really, they go hand in hand. Like we'll say a lot of times in this course, sustainability cuts across the past, present, and future. Having intragenerational justice now means that more people could have a chance to plan for a sustainable future. And that intergenerational justice means that future people could live more equitably within their generations. Let's see how that might play out. A lot of our world's biodiversity exists in indigenous territories and rural areas. So that's places like the forests of Southeast Asia, the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, and the Amazon basin, where people might not always have access to strip malls and delivery drones, but they have a heck of a lot of plants. And in countries like Laos and Southeast Asia, women tend to know the most about those plants. Through lifetimes of growing and gathering food and medicine for their families, rural Lao women become the keepers of traditional agricultural knowledge and incredible resources for managing their natural world. But as we know well, sexism means we can't have nice things. In a lot of those rural areas, women's agricultural and medicinal work is unpaid and undervalued, not to mention generally ignored when powerful people make big decisions together at their big decision-making tables. That sucks for those women and their mothers and daughters, but it also sucks for sustainability. Rural women's traditional knowledge helps preserve biodiversity, meaning it helps native plants and animals thrive, along with farm food crops, and helps people use them in ways that don't threaten their ecosystems. And paying attention to that traditional knowledge could help big decision makers create policies that protect biodiversity, instead of endangering it. Like a recent project in the Saipan region of Laos, where project managers worked with women and small farmers to plant native trees in a deforested area. The women's knowledge and expertise helped plant thousands of new trees with less need for fungicides and fertilizers, and those trees help prevent soil erosion and restore habitats for wildlife. That's a huge win for the environment, but there were huge wins for people too. Growing trees along with food crops helps protect the crops from extreme weather, runoff, and soil degradation, which means people in the Saipan could grow more food. And that could work in other places too. In fact, the Food and Agricultural Organization estimates that closing the global gender pay gap and giving women the same resources as men would lead to a 2.5 to 4% increase in agricultural output in developing countries. And that has the potential to bring 100 to 150 million people out of hunger. So that's our intragenerational justice squared. But it doesn't stop there. Valuing these women's work with money and resources and decision-making power means they'll have even more opportunities to pass down their biodiversity-saving, food-producing knowledge to future generations. And that forest they planted, in 7 generations, it could grow into a huge carbon sink as all those native trees suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. That could help slow climate change from greenhouse gas emissions and reduce flash flooding and heat events hundreds of years in the future. So thinking about both intra and intergenerational justice is good for everybody. It fosters equity, health, and safety now and in the future. It's worth noting that the world is messy, in case you haven't noticed, so sometimes thinking about justice can also get especially complicated. Take electric vehicles. Transitioning away from fossil fuels is a critical issue for intergenerational equity. The greenhouse gases emitted when we burn fossil fuels are putting our future at risk, and running vehicles on batteries is a part of the solution. But if you just took that information and ran with it straight to the battery factory, you'd be missing something. These kinds of batteries typically use cobalt, and around 70% of the world's cobalt is in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC. It's mined in dangerous industrial sites full of hazards, not to mention the dangers of cobalt exposure itself. And a lot of it is mined not by trained professionals, but by regular, everyday people, and their children. These kids, some as young as 6 years old, work in dangerous mines, often with no tools but their hands, and often for less than $2 a day. Even if companies producing electric vehicles try to avoid the unethically mined stuff, they might get it indirectly. And as demand for batteries and cobalt goes up, this is likely to happen more and more often. So for sure, electric cars are important for the sake of future generations. But if that's all we focused on, we'd miss current justice issues relating to child labor, not to mention ignoring other pressing issues like improving public transportation and bike infrastructure to reduce the need for cars in the first place. To get truly sustainable electric cars, we'll need to improve labor conditions and opportunities in the DRC, to monitor and prevent child labor throughout the cobalt supply chain, and to reduce government corruption before we run to the battery factory. You can see how much is wrapped up in inter and intragenerational justice. And as you've also seen, sustainability incorporates lots of different systems. So how do we know we're on the right track in all of these different areas? One way is with the planetary boundaries model. There are variations on this model, but the one we're looking at includes negative impacts on people and communities. The outside of the circle shows categories essential to maintaining Earth's stability and resilience, things like climate and groundwater. Surpassing certain thresholds in these areas means that the world will no longer be safe for human life in the future, an intergenerational justice issue. The inside of the circle incorporates justice for humans. This reminds us that as we pursue sustainability goals, there are boundaries that we could cross that would expose current people to harm, an intragenerational justice issue. In the end, we can't meet our long-term sustainability goals without fixing today's inequities. But we also can't pretend the future doesn't matter, because the day will come when you and I only exist on our great-great-great-grandchildren's eye screens, and the 7th generation will inherit the Earth. If we only think about the past, the present, or the future, we'll leave people and ecosystems behind. It's a lot to consider, but hey, if we can make sure that everyone has the opportunity to sit at the table, we'll be more well-equipped to get the job done. If you're enjoying this series and are interested in taking the full Study Hall Sustainability course and earning college credit from ASU, check out gostudyhall.com or click the button to learn more. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like, comment what you think we owe our future generations, and smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, see you next time.